Welcome to the Philosopher's Games Top Potentially Interesting Games of 2017 list. What a title. My focus is a bit on games you probably haven't heard of or have already forgotten. After that, I have also many honorable mentions of the more obvious ones. But let's start. Number 5, Kingdom Come Deliverance. Well, this one could also be Helix, but I think Helix will be more interesting for Germany and some neighbors, but not on an international level. It's also in the honorable mention list. So I decided to go with Kingdom Come Deliverance by the Czech Warhorse Studios, a game I'm very interested in too. It's a beautiful open-world RPG that tries to recreate very accurately the medieval kingdom of Bohemia. What that means is they want to make an almost historic correct game about the medieval times of the Czech kingdom. I really like the idea of exploring the world and the rules of that time. For example, you disguise yourself as a soldier to sneak into a military camp. At the camp, a guard asks you something in Hungarian considering the armor you're wearing. And if you answer in the wrong language, let's say Czech, he will be suspicious because he would expect you wearing this armor to speak Hungarian. If they can manage to pull details like this off throughout the whole game, have an interesting combat system and make you learn more about that time, this will be a great game. Number 4, Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord. The previous game, Mount & Blade Warband, was a strange game. I picked it up once in a Steam sale and just wanted to try it out a bit. Heard good things about it. Long story short, I played it for over 200 hours and I had to force myself to stop playing it because it was destroying my sleeping schedule over weeks. Not because I lost interest. This game is a huge time sink and can make you experience some amazing stories. It's a medieval sandbox RPG strategy game something. It's hard to describe. It has definitely flaws, but the combination of all those elements make it so unique and addictive it almost hurts. Warband and friends also had a ton of interesting mods, so you can play this game for hundreds or thousands of hours. With all this said, it's obvious that the new Mount & Blade is something I will keep an eye on. I definitely see huge potential if they are not overshadowed by bugs and technical issues on release. I also think a Song of Ice and Fire mod for this game could be the dream game for many fans of that series, since you run around gathering people and networking with other lords to gain influence, with the goal to maybe establish your own kingdom and maybe at some point rule the whole continent. Number 3, Below. Some games manage to pull you in with just a few pictures and let you create images of adventures in your head. We don't know too much about Below, but the few things we know and the strong art style at least let us see some potential. The big concern is of course the gameplay. Still, having a compelling art style that makes people interested in it is at least a good start. If the gameplay and story are strong too, this could be a great title, but of course it could also fail to deliver. Whatsoever, it's still interesting enough to have an eye on the project. It also got delayed, so maybe the extra time will help the developer to finish the game to its full potential. Number 2, Itour. Itour or Itour is a project that I have on my list for quite some time. I assume it will be released 2017. Basically, it seems to be a 2D Souls-like action RPG set in the northern mythology. What we saw of the game looks promising, and as a huge Souls fan I'm of course interested. The art style looks great, the gameplay material seems to be nothing new but solid. Animation work seems great, which is important for an action RPG that will be compared to the Souls series. For me, that is enough to be interested. Number 1, Return of the Obra Dinn. This is a game Lucas Pope, the creator of the phenomenal Papers, Please, is working on right now. It was announced 2.5 years ago and I already played the demo version from his site, which was quite convincing, I have to say. You play an investigator of the East India Trading Company who tries to find out what happened with the ship Obra Dinn that mysteriously vanished 5 years ago and just reappeared with no visible crew. The game is set in 1807 and it's an adventure game where your task is to find out what happened with all the people on the ship. I assume you will investigate on the ship, but probably also outside of it. For your investigation, you have this mysterious clock that let you see a freeze frame around the point of death of a corpse, but there are, at least as far as I know, more possibilities and features, but I won't spoil them here. Memorizing details of those freeze frames and combining the gathered information like Sherlock Holmes is required to solve this mystery. Also interesting is his 1-bit 3D art style, very unique. I have to say the playable demo, link is down in the description, totally convinced me. It's not a game for everyone, but has a potential to be an absolutely amazing game. My concern is that the developer maybe will have problems to make this detective work for all about 60 crew members interesting enough to carry the whole game. But I trust Lucas Pope. He made a game about controlling passports to one of the best games I have ever played, so I'm really interested in how it turns out. And that is my top 5 of potential interesting games of 2017 that are not that obvious. Now my honorable mentions with some more indie games and of course the big ones. Let's start with some indie games. Sunless Sky is a new game by Fail Better Games, the developers behind Sunless Sea. It seems to be the same, just in space. And if they learned out of the problems of Sunless Sea and can improve the gameplay, make it less grindy and keep up the unbelievable high quality of the writing, which is for me one of the best I've ever seen in a video game, then this could be a true gem. But I assume it will release 2018, that is also why it's not in my top list. Their Kickstarter campaign will just start next month in February. Then we have Rain World. It has a nice art style, probably a dense atmosphere, and the gameplay looks solid, so I see potential. Also, this rain looks really scary. You don't want to get hit by it. Next is Memory of a Broken Dimension, a glitch art horror game. Maybe not my kind of game, but I think glitch art games are quite rare and combining this with horror could be very interesting. And we have Paya by Supergiant Games. When the devs behind Bastion and Transistor announce a new game, the gaming world will have a closer look. Helix is a new game by Piranha Bytes, or as we call them here, Piranha Bytes, the developers behind Gothic and Risen. From my perspective, these games are more popular in Germany. I also have roots in the area where those games were made, and so the German voice acting has a special style that fits this region, and I really like it. I assume it's impossible to translate this style into English, but people from this region talk a bit more rough when it comes to choosing words, and sometimes their grammar is a bit off, because this region was once all about mining coal and heavy industry that formed culture, language and mentality here. The games of Piranha Bytes capture this very well, but if you don't know this or don't understand this, dialogues will often feel quite bad. Also, Piranha Bytes is a small developer. This is by no means a AAA title, not even close. Also, some of their mechanics in their past games seem a bit outdated or not well polished, plus technical issues. All these factors combined weren't very helpful when it comes to how well their games were received by an international audience and the press in the past. Their games live from this specific mentioned charm that is hard to translate. Still, I'm looking forward to this game and hope they can make a Gothic or Gothic 2 version of an apocalyptic future setting and improve their gameplay by a huge margin. That would help a lot. Also, I have no clue how well the English localization is done, to be honest. Then we have Torment, Tides of Numenera. Well, this game is already available through early access. I assume it will be fully released this year, and I think it could be a great game like the amazing Planescape Torment. Haven't tried it yet, still waiting for the release. Another game in a similar state, meaning early access, is Divinity Original Sin 2. You can play it right now of course, but it's not completed yet. I really liked the first game a lot, especially in co-op, and I hope Original Sin 2 will be as great and can maybe improve on some problems. Next would be Nier Automata. Nier seems to be really niche in the West. I only heard good things about the JRPG, but have never played Nier or the Drakengard series. Now, since I like spectacle fighters and Platinum games, I'm interested. Same goes with Scalebound, even though I'm not 100% convinced there, but Nier Automata looks actually really interesting. Another game with N, Neo. As a Souls fan, I have to say this looks great. Haven't played the alpha or beta, but heard only good things, so it has my attention. Maybe it can establish a spot in coexistence with the Souls games. I think it is unique enough to pull that off, and it looks fairly competent. Then we have Squadron 42. This is a single-player campaign for Star Citizen. And with this, we could get a glimpse at what Star Citizen can do. So even if it turns out to be not great, it's still an interesting game in the context of Star Citizen overall. And I personally think that they won't screw up here. Next would be For Honor. I have actually not much to say about it, but the gameplay looks great, the graphics and animations look great, and the idea is interesting. It has potential. Huge amounts of it. This is a big one, Red Dead Redemption 2. I really like Western movies and Sergio Leone is one of my favorite directors. With this said, I obviously loved Red Dead Redemption 1 and hope that 2 will be good too. My concern is a bit that they tie it too close to Red Dead 1. I would prefer a more standalone approach, so a new game with a different name, a totally different story and new characters. I made a news video about it when it was announced, maybe check this out for more information. Then we have Zelda, A Breath of the Wild. Well, I can't show footage, so in short, just combine the following points. Fans are hungry for a new Zelda. The last big console Zelda was 2011. Nintendo is so confident in this game that they just played it on E3 2016, almost 9 months prior to its release, for several hours, instead of showing some fancy rendered in engine, whatever that means, trailer that say absolutely nothing. And the last point, a very long development time that gives the impression that the game is already finished and they are polishing it to premium plus levels and holding it just back for the Switch launch. Combine all those points and you get the potential for maybe one of the best Zeldas ever made. Maybe I'm wrong and I don't like to hype things up, but what they showed us is actually impressive. Really impressive. Few publishers on Earth would, over 9 months before release, sit down and play their game on stage for like 5 hours. What if a bug occurred? The audience could get the wrong impression. Well, Nintendo didn't care and just did that. Also, the gameplay they showed us back then looked very polished. I think this one will be big and Nintendo seems to know this and they are very confident in this game. And the last game on my list is another of those running gags, Final Fantasy VII The Remake. As a Final Fantasy VII hardcore fanboy and purist, for me only the original Final Fantasy VII from 1997 exists. With this said, I'm very skeptical how they will transfer such an old game with so many plot points and an overworld with 4 to 5 continents into a modern game and splitting it into several episodes without major changes that could potentially lead into some disappointed fans. Still, it's a very interesting game and the success of Final Fantasy XV can increase expectations, but in my opinion, Final Fantasy VII is a different beast, at least from my imagination of how it would have to look. For Final Fantasy VII, the expectations will be high. very high, and I think it's almost impossible to hit those. But I can't really objectively talk about this game, and maybe they do a great job. I was also surprised by Final Fantasy 15, so maybe. And that wraps up my video. I thought about doing a 2016 top list video, but there are so many of those out there and my top list wouldn't be much different. So I thought, no, I don't do this. But if you want to know my top 5 of 2016, here it is. Number 5 would be Overwatch, number 4 would be Inside, number 3 would be Dota 2, update 7.00, number 2 would be Darkest Dungeon, and number 1 would be Dark Souls 3. So this is my top 5. And with this, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it or are interested in more content, consider following me on Twitter for updates or do the YouTube things. Thank you for watching and goodbye.